Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Akhanda Mandalakaram Yaptam Yena Characharam Tatparam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Sahana Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidveshovahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, the reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking process. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. From all different, the Bible, scriptures from all different places and locales, and these great souls that really are walking sannyasins, or their religions are named after them, but they are actually walking religion before the religion even gets formed. So those kinds of souls are the free souls that we admire, and so we're doing a series of 4 classes on them so that we can gain more appreciation, because God with form is under the press right now because of fundamentalism and hypocrisy in religion, which is always there in the backdrop, if not the foreground sometimes. Then God with form sort of gets a bad rap, a bad representation. So we want to make sure that when we get to the Father, and we get to the Father through the Son, that we appreciate what the Son is. That's S-O-N, but it might as well be a billion S-U-Ns, because they shine with that kind of light. They shine with the light of intelligence, the light of consciousness. As Zoroaster said, there's anything worth loving it has the light with it. So to take a trajectory that's a little bit more a matter of comparison, I'm putting up this chart. You have to know a little bit about the word sankalpa, which means mental projection. As we were saying this morning in satsang, there's the tree and then there's the thought tree. And so the tree has come out of the thought tree. That simple teaching of Vivekananda, the clay cup and the thought cup. He says the clay cup can get destroyed, but the thought cup does not get destroyed, except maybe in non-dual meditation where all forms go away, or in deep sleep for a while. But it comes dancing back when the consciousness inhabits the mind again, and the senses, and the body, when it associates with them. When it associates with them, its play is called Lila Sankalpa. When it identifies with it and becomes bound, it is called Mayak Sankalpa. So, going back to that great saying, if I may, for a second, that we started out with, the soul bound is man. That same soul free is God. Ramakrishna puts it in his inimitable way, as we say. So the sankalpic process is usually introduced and was given at a very ancient age when Lord Vashishta was teaching Ramachandra as a teenager. He was the teenage avatar. Only 12 people in the world knew he was a divine incarnation. Everyone else just thought he was the perfect son of King Dasaratha. Read the Ramayana, read the Yoga Vashishta, read the Adhyatma Ramayana particularly, that book that Lex Sixon, our founder, gave to me and had me read. As I was saying in the first half, it's on the shelf. It's going to bring you into current understanding of Lord Vashishta's teaching on sankalpa, mental projection. The word Sanskrit, kalpanika. Kalpanika means imaginings in time. So it points directly to that idea of life being a dream. This life's a dream, though true it seem. The only truth is He, the living. the real me is none but he, and never, never matter changing. That's how Vivekananda put it in one of his poems. So, denying himself to be the changing matter, he affirmed for himself and for everyone else that he was the unchanging Atman. And so, Kalpanika, imagining in time was not him. He wasn't entering into time. He said, where is time? Where is the time for which the soul can come and go, and all of time and all of space are in the soul? You know, external tree, internal tree, right? So everything out there, the finite, has come from the infinite. It's come from my infinite mind. And if I know that, then I can engage in Atmic Sankalpa. If I don't know that, my life is not sport and play at all. It's Mayik Sankalpa. It's samsara. So let's look across the board at this teaching, because the Avatar knows it very well and is a master at Leela. You might have read in the Gospel of Ramakrishna, Leela Dhyan, Nara Leela, Ramakrishna called it. Nara means mankind, so it's God sporting as mankind. Now, God can sport in man and man not know it, as he said in his quote. That's bound soul. But if you begin to know that God is sporting in you, what does that mean? Yes, you feel peace and bliss, and yes, you have grand experiences, but the real meaning of it is that you have no ego anymore. God has taken over your ego and replaced it with his own divine cosmic personality. And therefore you're seeing Krishna in everything, just like the Advaitas are seeing Brahman in everything. Or you're seeing Ram in everything, if you love Ram. Everywhere you go, you see the divine form. And people even look like the divine form to you. You sure you're not Krishna? You sure your name isn't Ram? You sure look like him to me. Take off your Ram glasses. And maybe everything won't look like Ram to you anymore. But so this divine play, if you're aware of it, is Leela, Nara Leela. And it's one of the great meditations you can do too. There's formless meditation and there's meditation with form. Actually, there's 4 strata of each, the way I've been teaching it on a chart that we've seen before here at SRV. And of those, the highest of those meditations with form is Nara Leela, or Leela Dhyan. Dhyan means meditation, Leela means sport. So you're meditating on the Avatar as he sported in consciousness in any given age. As I said a few weeks ago in a class, or a few months ago in a class maybe, at Christmas we see the Leela Dhyan spill out onto people's lawns. The Christ Leela, glowing with 3 wise men, neon shepherds and neon lambs and neon baby Christs and everything. The Leela Dhyan just float out onto people's lawns. Now, that might be a little superficial depending on how much devotion you do have for Christ. Because if you do have real devotion for Christ, you're going to cut time down. 2,000 years is nothing. Christ is still here. He never left, because the soul never is born and it never dies. How much more would that be in effect for the divine soul, the realized soul? So you go and you meditate on 3 wise men in Christ, and you start smelling frankincense and myrrh in your own consciousness, and there's the external frankincense and myrrh, and then there's the internal frankincense and myrrh. If you have subtle senses inside, like dream senses, then you can experience that, and it can become very real for you. I know this because when I wrote the puja for SRV, Durga Puja it's called, 3-hour puja, and I borrowed from different aspects of pujas in scripture, from the Ramakrishna order, from my own teacher's puja, and from my own experience, put those all together. As I wrote it, I memorized it. And as I memorized, I realized that it was happening inside of me as I went through it in my mind. It was actually a mental side of the physical worship. So all of a sudden I looked at the altar and I said, actually, I don't need to polish the articles. I'll polish them inside. It's a lot easier. So there, I'm polishing the pot, done. I didn't even spend, a penny on copper cleaner. or brass cleaner. I suppose you could include that as part of your going to, now I'm going to the store, now I'm buying, so you could make it very detailed, but but it's all an inner worship. And the whole thing is really pointing to this Jnana Yoga teaching of, the external clay cup, internal clay cup. We don't think that way because we think of it in terms of creationism, not projectionism, sankalpa. We think creation is real. That these things actually were created. But the teaching is they never had a beginning, middle, and end, and neither did you. They're all a projection of your own mind, sankalpa. Now, you can do sankalpa and get yourself into a frightful mess. You can sankalpa yourself right into hell and live there for lifetimes. It's called samsara. Or you can sankalpa yourself right out of hell and out of bondage into Naralila, into my best friend is Krishna, and I'm walking down the road with him every day. See? Yeah. People may think I'm crazy, but here he is. I'd like to introduce you to my friend. Let's get out of here, this guy's crazy. Well, they called Ramakrishna crazy. He saw Kali. One day he said, after he was the priest of the Kali temple, he said, one night at midnight I was going up the stairs of the Kali temple and Mother Kali ran past me, anklets jingling, completely naked, ran up the stairs. The statue came alive. Yes, it was a projection of his own mind. Not a figment of his imagination. That's what the psychologists will tell you on the therapy table. They're trying to heal you, you see. I don't want to be healed. I'd rather see Mother Kali as a figment of my own imagination than never see her at all, you see, for one thing. But what if I saw her as my own mental projection and I lived with her inside, you see, in my own mind? There's songs about it. Oh mind, let's go into the chamber of the heart. There's a shrine there, and on the shrine's an altar. On the altar sits the Divine Mother of the universe. Remember, when we go in there, you can't take your senses. But, take your tongue, because when you see her, you'll want to chant her praises. This is the song. It's got a punchline. It's a song with a punchline. So this worship is a very profound thing, this bhakti yoga. And how much more profound when you put it together with jnanam, with the wisdom of what's going on in a puja. Not just doing it by rote, but actually having the knowledge of what you're doing, what incense means, what flowers mean, what water, sacred water is, who the deity is, who you are. Kante kata samsarayam ajiva, we just sang it. So who are you? Who's the deity? Who's the worshipper? What's the puja? Exceedingly wonderful is this empirical process. You bring your consciousness to bear on everything. So a little bit about sankalpa in its positive aspect and in its negative aspect. Now in its positive aspect you have divine will at sport. In its negative you have power of obstruction. That's called avarana shakti, the power, the obscuring power in things. And vikshepa shakti, the distorting power in things. But this is revelatory power, prakasha shakti. It reveals. That's what you want. Obscuration, distortion, get thee behind me. Bring me revelation. That's my bridge into the unknown, you see. These are all across the board teachings, you see. So let's go across the board with the next level. The appearance of time, space, causation, mind, and intellect as cosmic principles, not as random events, not as figments of your imagination. No, they're cosmic principles. They're cut in stone. If I know them this lifetime, I'll know them next lifetime. So I should memorize them. Let's see. Great mind, intellect, mind, ego, thoughts, 5 tanmatras, the ego in its 3 forms, the tanmatras, the five senses, the five motor senses, the five subtle elements, the tanmatras, and the five elements, air, earth, fire, water, and ether. There's my castle. There's my cosmic castle. If I know them now, I know them forever. And guess what? Every religion is based something, has taken some of the cosmic principles and based their religion on that, especially in India. Lord Kapila did his homework. Everyone loves it. So, remember, these are all cosmic principles that the soul can use. See, across the board, though, appearance of time, space, causality, mind, and intellect as assumed reality. They think those things are real. They're assuming them to be real. They're assuming the world to be real. But we just heard from the great sayings, Brahman Satya Jagad Mithya, right? Brahman alone is real. The world is unreal. So a different perspective as we look across the board. The next level, Lila Sankalpa, has to do with Jnanakasha and Chittakasha. The universes are modes of awareness. That's how the one sporting in consciousness sees it. The one under the influence of the power of obscuration thinks of it as Mayakasha. Universes are ego-based ideation. So one has awareness, one has the ego as their foundation. That's the difference, the distinction. The next level, acquisition of an illumined guru and adherence to the spiritual path. If you're doing a Lila Sankalpa, you'll notice that all the great souls took teachers. They found Christ on the steps, that is his parents, found him on the steps at 14 talking to the rabbis. They said, "Where did you go?" He said, "Where else should I go? I have to be about my Father's business." So he was asking questions about Judaism, about the religion of the day. He'd have to know that. If he's the king of the Jews, you'd think he'd have to know that. So that's really the point here. You ask questions of teachers to find out. So any teacher, you'll find, has taken a teacher. Ramakrishna took 3 or 4. They don't need teachers. You understand what I'm saying? They're perfected souls. They need to know the times they're living in. Vivekananda came to America, went into one of his friend's parlors, libraries, shut the door, and read the entire encyclopedias in 3 days. He wanted to catch up on what was happening this millennia. He hadn't been around, in other words, for a millennia or 2. He wanted to know what mischief we'd gotten into so that he could get us out of it in the quickest possible way in his 39-year-old life. That's how much time he had to work. So, across the board, reliance on ego-mind complex and belief in conventional paths. We talked about fundamentalism and convention, mundane religious convention, superficiality in the name of religion and so forth. That's on the march. So that's at best what a soul under the influence of Maya Sankalpa would fall into. We're going through this rather quickly, so hold on to your dhotis. Next level, discipline, curbing of the mind's tendency towards sankalpa. Krishna tells Arjuna, sankalpa is a positive evil, give it up, renounce it. He's telling him to stop thinking in a negative way, especially. But actually, Klishta-vritti's first, right? Aklishta-vritti's next. Get rid of your negative thoughts with positive thoughts. Then, guess what? Get rid of your positive thoughts. There's an iron chain and a gold chain. They both bind you. Haven't you noticed how morals and ethics have bound religion so that they don't go on toward the teachings, the Dharma? We're running toward the Dharma, some of us. We say, okay, enough. I understand thou shalt not kill. You don't have to harp on it. I want to know thou cannot kill. It's impossible to kill. That's the difference between a law and a dharmic law. A moral law and a dharmic law is that you can't kill. We just went through that in several forms, didn't we? Krishna and Ram telling us about it, see? No one should weep for the dead or the living. All of us were before, and we will not cease to be after. It's an unborn soul we're talking about. Ajati Vada, the path of those who know that they're never born. Ajati Vada. One of the great non-dual axioms. So they discipline the mind's tendency towards sankalpa. I will not create cloud castles in the sky. As Buddha said, "O architect of this universe, I will not build homes anymore now that I've seen you. I will not build homes of rock and stone. I will not build homes of wood. I will not build homes of flesh and bone. I will not build homes of wise conception." That's sankalpa, building homes of wise conception. So Buddha saw it and gave it up. Thousands of years before him, Krishna was on the battlefield at Kurukshetra, not far away, saying, "Give it up, Arjuna. Do not engage in it." If you want to put it this way, keep your mind at peace. If you engage in sankalpa, it's going to have an effect. Any cause is going to have an effect. That's karma, isn't it? Cause and effect is, one object hitting another and, well, let's see what happens. Okay, been there, done that. But let's look into the mind and see what happens when I think a certain thing and what the effect is. Now, I'm going to have to think a certain thing, and then I'm going to have to watch where that thought goes. And if I watch closely, here it comes, look out, you see. Get out of the way, you see. Or if it's a positive thought, you say, that's great, it's coming back the way I want it to. That's the difference between atmic sankalpa and mayic sankalpa. It's not random and chance, or left up to hope, or luck, or serendipitousness, and such silly things, you see. It's based upon will, supreme will and knowledge. Yours. You determine it. In other words, indetermination is one of the great obstacles to yoga. It's one of the 7 great obstacles to yoga. I'm sorry, 9. Getting my systems mixed up. Now, across the board, consciousness, deluded contemplation of the things of the world as being real. There it is again. I'm accepting the unreal for the real. So if you're getting tired of hearing the Vedantas say Brahman is real, the world's unreal, try looking at it in Lord Vasishta's way. Because he's mentioned it twice now. You're taking unreal things to be real. If you want to look at it through the eyes of quantum physics, it's all vibrating particles, changing at a billionth of a second. How real is that? Doesn't it sound like shifting sand to you? And doesn't Christ tell you not to build your house there? Didn't Buddha just say, "O architect of the universe, I will not build any more houses"? What's with these people, you see? These avatars, these great souls. They sound like, how do they put it nowadays? Life negators. Yes, they are. They're life negators. They're worldly life negators. They're deluded life negators. They're mayic life negators, definitely. But they're not divine life negators because they themselves lived a divine life in the body. Isn't that simple? Can't you get that clear? I tell people when they come at me with that kind of idea. So, yes, let's negate everything that's unreal. The thing is, only Brahman is really real, so you're going to have to do a lot of negating in Vedanta and in Buddhism. See, but it's not that painful. Just give it up. You give it up in here, right? You can still work with it out here. I'm not saying to renounce the world like a monk. You moderate. You walk the middle path. Even the great Buddha, who was the supreme renunciate, was a middle path exponent. Sri Sharda Devi said, "I hope you're not born again because there's a lot of suffering in birth and death." She's a middle path exponent. She knows people are in the world, and a lot of them can't give it up. One of her great Mahavakyas I can recall right now is that people have a hard time giving up a dented tin cup. How's that for a Mahavakya? You ask them to renounce the world, but they can't even give up a dented tin cup. See, an impoverished person would say, that's valuable. You see, I need that. They cling to it, right? It's all they have. But clay cup, internal clay cup. See, tin or clay, does it really make any difference? One's finite and the other's infinite. But the finite came from the infinite, so that might as well be infinite too. I can get another clay cup even out there. Or another dented tin cup. You go to the street, can I have a tin cup, vendor? Yeah, here it is. Oh, I don't really comfortable with that. Where's a rock? I'll put a dent in it. There, now I feel better. Get another one. Same with children. If you lose a child, yes, grieve a little while, get another one. Maybe that same soul will come back to you and your grief is keeping him from coming back. Things that keep you in that little, inside the box, you see. One lifetime scenario, those are never healthy. Vivekananda said, all those things that society holds as laws that are passé, that are old and outdated, get rid of them, because they're keeping people from growing. Time for the revolutionary, the real revolutionary to come forth. Swami Vivekananda was it. He's the harbinger, the bringer of this wisdom to us. In 1893 at the Parliament of Religions, it was staged by the mother. You can read about that. It's a matter of history now. Let's go on to the next level. In other words, to conclude, they discipline the mind, those who are into Leela, to curb the mind's tendency towards mental projection. But on the other side of the coin, they are contemplating the things of the world as real. The more sankalpa they can do, the better. The more confusing it gets, they think, the better for them. On this side, these ones who are under the auspice of Atmik Sankalpa or Leela Sankalpa practice the yoga to remove tendency for Sankalpa and the desire for objects for the world. But those on the other side, consciousness in association with Sankalpa contemplates even denser states of matter. All right, it's not enough that we see the object. We have to take it apart and look at even denser parts of the object. Until we find out that there's just nothing but particles there. What should that tell us? That there are particles of life force, there are particles of thought, there are particles of intelligence. Let's go that direction. Because if we go so far out looking at physical particles, there's nowhere to go. We're left in the lurch. Prana, we missed the pranic doorway. Chi, mana, life force, elan vital, we missed that doorway. Man should not live by bread alone. We missed that doorway, see? And so we're left in a lurch. We're just out in matter. In not just change, like the change that happens every day or every year or every decade or every lifetime. My favorite restaurant went away, see? But the change that happens at a billionth of a second, how can the mind even comprehend? So even denser states of matter are considered instead of on the other side of the coin there. They give up the tendency for sankalpa and the desire around objects. They make sure they're free. They stay free. Look at the graph in the middle, right about now. It started out on one side as nirvana as opposed to samsara. Down the middle. Down here it got into what we're talking about now. It's really sadhana, isn't it? Even the people practicing Advaita are practicing Advaita Vedanta sadhana. Those yogis are practicing yogic sadhana. The tantricists are practicing tantric sadhana. So they're doing a practice. On the other hand, there's no practice, is there? It's just worldliness, the chronic disease of worldliness, Ramakrishna called it. The evil of this age is the chronic disease of worldliness. There's no religion, there's no practice, there's no God, there's nothing but matter. That's a disease without a remedy, as Ram Prasad sings in one of his songs. Shall I sing it for you? No. Let's do the chart. Eventually it's going to come down to realization as opposed to complacency. So it's a nice measuring graph of how Mayic Sankalpa proceeds into the basement of forgetfulness, and how Atmic Sankalpa or Leela Sankalpa will end up in realization at the end of your lifetime. It's headed for realization. This is headed for nothing but laziness, slothfulness, heedlessness, complacency. Woe is me. My life is over and I didn't attain anything, and so forth and so on. Those are your mantras. So, here's one of the great teachings of Yoga Vashishta, of Lord Vashishta. He says, attenuation of sankalpa via the practice of asamvedana. It's verily asam, I can tell you. Asamvedana. It means non-receptivity to desires and to the sankalpa that brings them about. Non-receptivity, you just won't go there. You stand off. Face them off, stand away. It would be like, I was thinking the other day, it's like the man walking down the railroad track, or say the young boy walking down the railroad tracks. The train's coming, so he doesn't know it. But this young boy put his ear to the track, hears rumbling, and steps aside. Whoosh. Safe. Non-receptivity to what's coming. You just exercise your own awareness a little bit, a little forethought, a little insight, a little of these teachings, and you're free. See, that's Vashishta's teaching. It's not about like digging out the karmas and going into the impurities of the mind and doing that kind of sadhana. You see, that's 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration. Let's bring more of the percentage of inspiration into the picture and less of the perspiration. You see, let's make it natural and spontaneous, because that's what our soul is. That's who we are. Congratulations, you're all God walking around in men and God walking around in women. You've made the grade. You see, you're there. You've arrived. Now it's time to realize it. Across the board, longing for desire-based existence in an embodied condition leading to cycles of birth and death. The Buddhists call that Trishna. Trishna is thirst, desire for things. And it's based on other things as well. So this is reminiscent of that teaching. It's longing. Longing for things that are unreal, things that can't satisfy you. One of my teachers' once-a-year lectures, the title of it was "Satiation Never Comes." He'd started out by saying, you're all practicing the Bhoga Marga. You need to practice the Jnana Marga. Bhoga Marga means the path of enjoyment. It's not leading you anywhere except into complacency, into more lifetimes. Try the Jnana Marga on for size. I did. I'm free. What could he say? What could he do? He was standing there for 90 years. Over 90 years as an illumined soul. How else do you think he got the grace of Holy Mother? He used to say about her, I've seen her face. I've heard her voice. Now I long for her grace with all my heart. He didn't ever make statements like that. We only heard him say that rarely. Is when we happen to be so audacious as to ask him, what was your time with Holy Mother like? Some little voice coming out of the back, and everyone, you shouldn't have asked that. Everyone trembling, what's he going to answer, you see? And his eyes would get soft, and he would say that. So, this other kind of longing, not healthy for you. Be free. It binds you. It takes away your freedom, your willpower. And you're giving your power away to insentient things. Why are you doing that? Then after you get asamvedana, he says, contemplation of everything with the eye of abhava, non-existence, emptiness. It's like a Buddhist teaching long before the Buddha gave it. Abhava means emptiness. Thousands of years before Buddha spoke shunyata, this was in India's mind. Abhava, no moods. Nothing exists except me. I am existence. Does it sound familiar? Do you remember? There's a one-word Sanskrit Mahavakya for you. Two, actually. Asamvedana and this one, abhava. Put them together. Asamvedana abhava. There's a powerful new Mahavakya for you that's ancient. See? Across the board, experience of pain and acceptance of suffering as being real. Another mention of taking the unreal for the real. Now your pain and your suffering is real. You've created the disease without a remedy. Now evil is real too, and it's not my fault. The devil is doing it. Now you've created an incarnate devil as well, to boot. And then there has to be a place for him to dwell, so let's call it eternal damnation. That's the fruits of Maya Sankalpa. Now the last thing is attainment of samadhi and absorption in Brahman. Asamvedana, abhava, samadhi, Brahman. Just like that. But for the Maya Sankalpic person, fear of pain, attachment to pleasure, leading to rebirth and ignorance. This is a nice chart of distinction between how the soul can engage in mental projection without fear, and how a soul should not engage in mental projection in ignorance. Atmik Sankalpa, it's in several stories. Lord Vashishta himself says, the universes are only modes of consciousness reflected through Atmik Sankalpa, the divine will of Parabrahma, which is said to evolve them out of itself for the purpose of sportive play. You know what story it's in is that story of the woodcutter and the city carved in wood. He takes a nice piece of sandalwood or something, sandstone or whatever it is. He carves a whole city in it, this master carver. It's Sankalpa, it's Maya. It's not a real city, but your mind can get into it, just follow everything, so much detail, you're just sucked right in. For hours, wow, it just goes on and on. It's the story in Yoga Vashishta. I did a version of it, a quintessential Yoga Vashishta it's called, where I felt the best stories for our society in this day and time, and put it into a quintessential. It's a good 8 by 11 because it's got the charts in it. It's got about 24 charts in it, like these, that you can make a study of Lord Vashishta's wonderful philosophy. He has a cult following. You just type in Vashishta on the internet now, boom, boom, boom. You see how many even Americans are following his yoga. Worthy of a glance at least. One other quote at the bottom and we'll move on. By Atmik Sankalpa is meant divine will in manifestation. But it degrades into Maya Sankalpa via ego-based ideation that arises as a result of falsified relationship between subject and object. You start to cause the distinction between God and mankind, distinction between spirit and nature. And pretty soon that distinction becomes real, and there's not one anymore, there's two. And then you forget the two and the many. And it's ego-based ideation, isn't it? The ego wants to play, so it starts playing with Maya. But the realized soul isn't going to go there. It's divine will at play for him. And he won't forget that. And he won't deviate from that. That's how you see the Leela Dhyan. Didn't Ram live a divine life, even though he was sent in exile into the forest? Didn't Krishna live a divine life, even though he became the king of Madhura toward the middle of his life? Didn't Christ live a divine life, even though he knew he was going to be crucified? Didn't Buddha live a divine life, even though he was poisoned in the end by bad food someone gave him? They all lived a divine life. So, is there any Maya Sankalpa in their lives? And how long did their lives last? 2,000 years? 2,500 years? 5,000 years? 10,000 years? For those of you Hatha yogis who are seeking longevity, look at the avatars. If you want true longevity. Longevity on that side of the board, Maya Sankalpa, is an occult power. Longevity on this side of the board is an avatar. Make your choice.
Mm-hmm.
Make the wise choice. So, one of the Yoga Vasishtha charts, like I said, some 24 of them, we look at them every once in a while to bring in that philosophy. One of the darshanas of India, I call it. It's not listed as that, but it might as well be. It's very Vedanta. Now, we still have good time. We have a half hour, at least, or more. So let me show you another new chart. Because the avatar is very much, has his eye, his or her eye, on the avastas, like I said, gradations of soul. And we should show it in terms of another of Vasishtha's teachings, the 14 stages of progression. This will segue into next week's class because I have another new chart that has to do with progress towards true freedom. All of these three will be a part of this avataric Advaita of the Avatars class, and that will carry on into next week so we can see what the soul's predicament in Maya is, how it transcends Maya with the help of great souls like the Avatar, the Avatars, and also when it becomes realized, what other stations are there for it to occupy? They say there can't be two sheriffs in the same town, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if the Avatar is living, they say, well, maybe I don't want to be the Avatar, or I can't be the Avatar. I think I'll just be a seer, or I'll be a yogi, or I'll be a rishi, or I'll be an adept. You see, whatever the case, they're all free. So give them any name you like. Their ignorance has died. That's the main thing. They can go and do what they will, Atmik Sankalpa style, Leela Sankalpa style. Maya ignorance is gone for them, but they know it's still in you. Swamiji made that statement. He said, you are never in Maya. It is Maya that's in you, so get rid of it. There's a Mahavakya for you. You are never in Maya. It's Maya that's in you, so get rid of it. Know the truth and set yourself free, in other words. Now, both of these charts are very interesting. In fact, I think I really need to teach it from here and make reference to this, because this is very simple. This 14 stages of upper and lower knowledge, we usually take it at a Yoga Vasishtha retreat, so it doesn't get shown very often, but I consider this to be really valuable for a precious teaching in the Dharma for beings who want to understand not only the stages of avastas, these great aged stages, but how people wake up. Because usually the teaching is from here up. It's called the 7 Atmagyana Bhumikas. And these are of mere mention, the lower hells, the sunken grounds. The teaching is usually given from here up, the 7 Atmagyana Bhumikas. But these lower darkened lands, if you put them together, you can see how a soul, and it's one of the questions that many of us are thinking about, how does a soul get out of darkness? What's its actual dynamics of a soul getting out of darkness? How does that work? Can we see grace working? If we can't see God, no one has seen God ever with these eyes, then must be an internal working. How is it That how can we see that inner working, that empirical process that Shankara said was so wonderful? How can we see that in action and come to know it so that we can utilize it ourselves for our own progress? What to speak of when the time comes to help others, like our children and so forth. Then we know what they're going through, you see. So I deem it very important to add the lower 7 stages in. They are mentioned, so let's look at them. And these names are very interesting too. Bindu Jagrat. It's a state of ignorance, a root state of ignorance the soul is born in. You have to say, why was the soul born in that? Because of past lifetimes karma. The more lifetimes you live in ignorance, the more you consider the world to be real. That's how Ramakrishna put it. So you come back considering the world to be real. Guess what? There's a Mayak Mahavakya in this. The world is my oyster. It's not a good thing to say, you see, or to think. The world is my oyster. Here, I can have everything I want. You can't have anything here unless you detach from it in non-ownership, non-agency, non-separation. Then you can be free and move amongst it without these repercussions going on, karmas. And worse, going on Prarabdha style, but then going on future too. You do something, and that instead of listening to the train tracks, you've done an act unthinkingly, and it's coming back at you like a stray bullet out of nowhere, you see. Fine, walking along, all of a sudden, you're lying in a pool of your own blood, as it were. A stray bullet. So this Bindu Jagrat is the very lowest state of a human being, and the state of root ignorance. And the other sign of it is that incipient manifestation of the jiva. He believes himself to be an embodied being. In fact, he doesn't really know what an embodied being is. He doesn't really think, I am an embodied being. If he did, that would be tantamount to saying, who am I, right? Well, that's going to happen later on, you'll see. But right now he's not thinking, who am I? He's just pretty thinking, he's not thinking. It's called root ignorance. There's not much to be said about that state. It's just tamas. It's the cloud of unknowing is thick there. The next level is jagrat. Jagrat really means like waking state in the world, in the body. He only knows his waking state. He doesn't know the state of his dreaming yet, and he doesn't know the state of deep sleep, and she certainly doesn't know samadhi, the other 3 states of his being. So he's pretty much jagrat. And that kind of awakeness is not spiritual awakeness. Let's make sure we know that. It's just awake to matter, awake to senses. That's it. Zip. There you see the characteristics. Awareness of individuation. Inception of differentiation. It's selfishness, basically, kind of differentiation. I and my father aren't one. My father doesn't exist, and these other people around me are inferior to me. They don't matter. I'm the only thing that's important. Over here, you're talking about animalism. The animalistic is gross, you see, and the ignorant, gross level. So you're starting to work this way. Yes, the soul does evolve. Yes, there is hope for the soul in deep darkness. That help may be slow in coming, depending on their own perception, openness, or lack thereof, or to the degree that they're open or not in any given cycle. Then you get to Mahajagrat, progression of repeated rebirths, and believes man and universe to be dissimilar. That's a misleading kind of teaching. Man and the universe are dissimilar. That's called higher knowledge, isn't it? When you know that you're not matter. But here, he doesn't know he's not matter. He's still thinking he's matter, and the dissimilarness is based on him not knowing that the universe has come from him. That's the best way of describing it that I can say. So you can see the subtle difference in shades of teaching there. You are dissimilar from the universe. He should be aware of that now. He should be far beyond the station that he's assigned to, shouldn't he? But the problem is that he's not thinking of it in terms of sentiency and insentiency, the soul and nature, the soul in nature. He's not aware of that. As far as he's concerned, nature is the only thing that exists. And he doesn't know that nature has come out of him. All of nature has come out of his mind, sankalpa, right? It's all a mental projection. You'll get that idea given to you and handed to you again and again and again in Buddhism and Vedanta until you finally get out of this Western way of thinking that it's created out of nothing. Vivekananda made that beautiful statement. I can kind of paraphrase it. It said, Advaita Vedanta will be the future religion of humanity. There's no doubt about that. Just a matter of how long, what time. He says, even the priests in Christianity have been running to the Bible to change the wording since I've been here. The idea of a big God sitting around on a cloud up in heaven above you, and that kind of idea is fast fading from the mind of the Westerners. And what's taking its place is the idea of the eternity of the soul and the eternity of nature. Everything is eternal. There was never a time when anything was created out of nothing. It's a misleading idea to think, we came from dust and go back to dust. That's the body you're talking about. Vedanta would clarify. But you didn't come and you didn't go would be the Advaitic standpoint. And if you want to drop a level down from that, then you came from your mind. You produced a body from your mind, and then your consciousness got in it, lived a while, and then it gave up the body. That's the qualified way of thinking about it. And you'll live enough of those lifetimes until Lila Sankalpa kicks in, and then you'll find yourself not believing in a God sitting on a throne somewhere and a devil somewhere down below you in hellfire, and that kind of silliness. Non-literal, it's fine. You can find meanings for God in the sky and devil under the earth. You can find symbolic meanings, but literally it's not going to wash. Not for the intelligent people of the West. You're going to have to find a way to explain to them, and Vedanta is that way. It will be the future religion, Advaita particularly, of thinking mankind. He prophesied. Now if you go beyond that third level of Mahajagrat, you get to Jagrat Swapna. Jagrat is waking state, Swapna is dream. Oh, guess what? Now, the dreams are beginning to work into things. You see, he's beginning to have a second side of his consciousness, a second level of his consciousness kick in. Because dreams are not just the things that I had tonight, which are sort of, I've forgotten, but dreams are aspirations, aren't they? You dream things about things that you can't have here, but you want. So your desire soul is wrapped up in those. Your aspirations are wrapped up in those. So what are the signs there? Sovereignty over nature. Does it sound like what the West has accomplished? Or it thinks it's accomplished? Nature can backfire on it at any moment. Try and be an overseer of nature or controller of nature is probably not a wise thing. Try and live in harmony with it as far as it goes. Also gets attached to objects. Also labors under delusion. So you can just take this as a back and forth with a little arrow, you see, and how a soul in the incipient level of root ignorance works its way out. And there are signs that you can tell by. The avatars know these signs. I can see where you are. You're at that fourth state called such and such, you see, Jagrat Swapna. And what you need is to get to the next avasta. What is that? It's swapna, pure dream. Gains objectivity, examines life's events in a dream, and remembers everything upon awakening. Does it sound like you're psychic? Does it sound like you're a person who is interested in metaphysics and is starting to experiment with that level of things? Prana, occult, that kind of thing. Reading dreams, interpreting dreams. See, there's even some of that in religion. So you're beginning to get to that level where your dreams are becoming kind of real and the waking state is taking a back seat. Don't stop there, you'll just get attached to sleep, as many people do. So I think I'll go to sleep now. Good morning, good morning. It's 1 p.m. and you're just getting up. The next level is Swapna Jagrat. Now Swapna has taken the, as I was just saying, it's taken the prominence over waking state. You're kind of living a dream. You're living your dream. Signs there, you recall events long past and you render the waking state lucid. You've gotten out of that incipient state of the root ignorance, the density, the weightiness, the heaviness, and now you're kind of getting free. Now, the seventh state of Agyanabhumikas, the lands of ignorance, is Sushupti. You see how they explain it, Sushupti is deep sleep. So they really are taking this idea of your 3 states of awareness seriously: waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. And it also shows us that it was not just the gift of Gaudapada. Gaudapada just resurrected it. It was there, very ancient, back in Vasishta's time. The idea of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep was examined by souls, by very superlative souls. There you have that the man realizes all states as beset with pain. The first noble truth of the Buddha. He's finally getting some real sense. All states of awareness are beset with pain. All states of form. And guess what? Pleasure is pain too, because they always come in turn. Here, have a chocolate cupcake. Oh, that's good, my favorite. Here, have another. That's really good. Here, have another. Oh, that's enough, please. No, have another. I'll force it down your throat. Here, have a 5th. Oh, I don't like it anymore. What you love, you hate. If it gets to be too much, you see. So that's the way with pleasure. It becomes insipid. So you've gone from incipient to insipid. What else is there? Perceives all worlds in Maya. These are realizations. Now you can see why you're coming to the higher lands. The Buddhists have the 10 pure lands. We have the 14 Jnana and Agyanabhumikas to explain how a soul works its way out of darkness. Guess what? It happens. We don't anymore have to just say the worldly and the spiritual are 2 things and never the twain shall meet. There are passages being made. There are roadways being created. There are open arms on one side for those who are ready. What happens when you're ready? You get to Subhecha, the first stage. It's you study the Atmagyan scriptures. You seek guidance from an illumined soul. Your desires are to enjoy Jnana essence. You live on wisdom. And the attraction for the path of indifference attends you. They don't care about anything anymore, and we don't mean that in a bad way. It's not like, lack of concern for people's welfare or any of that. It's an indifference. It's what Krishna said, Maitri, friendliness to those who are in need of friendship. And mudita, joy in front of those who are sorrowful. And upekshanam, equanimity in this face of chaos. And finally, this very thing. Basically, you are indifferent to evil people, to evil things. You become indifferent. And evil things are already been proven to you to be pain and pleasure, aren't they? So you're indifferent to that too. So people are saying, you're not having any fun anymore. Or they're asking you, are you having fun? But you've already classed fun and non-fun and pleasure and pain into one bag, and you're not really thinking in those terms anymore. Your fun is the Atmagyan scriptures. Your fun is the Jnana essence. And your fun is seeking illumined souls and getting wisdom from them. if it could be called that. Now here we got to catch up. Animalistic and an ignorant person is at the gross level. The worldly person is at the primal level, and the intelligent person arrives at the vital level. They're using intelligence, prana as intelligence to move their thoughts, in other words. And then the religious person is at the ephemeral, at the ethereal level, and the spiritually awakened person is at the celestial level, thinking in terms of awakening and higher things, you see. So basically this is the march of the soul put in a very simplistic way to sort of explain the 14 Atmagyan Bhumikas and how one ascends in that way. At this point, we'll come back to this and read some of the quotes on this. Actually, I don't have to close that. I have 2 copies. The quote on top is by Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. The jiva at first remains in a state of ignorance. It is not conscious of God, but of matter and multiplicity. It only notices the many things around it. You could see how it's described in these 2 systems. Upon attaining knowledge, it becomes conscious that God dwells in all beings. But upon attaining higher wisdom, it discards both knowledge and ignorance and talks of nothing but God day and night. So he's pretty much describing 3 levels that are found in this whole march on these 2 charts. 3 levels: ignorant, knowledgeable, intellectual, and then finally awakened, spiritually awakened, so that God takes over everything in his life now, like it did for Ramakrishna. He used to say, my ears are burning with the talk of worldly people. When will my devotees come to me? And the minute he said that out into the ether, they started coming. Rakal first, Naren next, so forth. They started coming out of the woodwork to find him. He climbed up on the roof of the Kali temple one night and said, "Where are you, my beloved ones? Where are you?" He yelled out into the darkness. "I'm here, I'm ready, come to me." And they started coming. His 12-year sadhana period was over, earth-shaking sadhana. And the 16 direct disciples were already headed at him. Already moving towards him. The lotus had bloomed in the woods. The bees are on the way. And Vivekananda was one of those. See, how do we sing that? Swadharma shrestatam sagarvam samsatam janana drishtata tayaiva bhajyaho swadharmo vaidiko yanargo darshitaha vivekanandate prabhate pranjali narendra shashave narendra yovane narendra kridane narendra shikshane narendra palane narendra yarpane vivekanandate prabhate pranjali. Just 2 verses of a beautiful 12-verse stotram by Swami Harshananda, one of the Sanskrit scholar swamis in the Ramakrishna order. Beautiful. I'll just read it out for you. The eternal verities contained in the Vedic religion were revealed and explained lucidly by you, Swami Vivekananda, the great teacher. This humbled the pride of those who erroneously proclaimed their creed to be superior to others. By silencing these false assumptions, you have opened all minds to truth and have drawn attention to a truly universal path. In this auspicious dawn of awakening, of illumination, O Vivekananda, we offer you our humble salutations. So as the soul awakens by the power vested in them by the avatar who wants to see them awake, to wants them to know that they're ever awake, to wants to invest them with yogic insomnia. They come and they get enlightened, like Swami Harshananda did, and then he writes it in a song. I like his last verse. He says, after the whole thing's over, he says, "To all those who would attain true freedom, we encourage the chanting of this hymn composed in a sacred Himalayan mountain retreat." He went on a retreat, and when he was on that retreat, probably at Mayavati, he wrote this hymn to Swamiji, long after Swamiji had left the body. Devoted recitations of these verses on Swami Vivekananda imbues one with physical vigor, mental strength, and spiritual power, and increases discrimination and detachment. In this brilliant dawn and collective awakening of all beings to higher truth, we offer Narendranath, the leader of souls, our eternal salutations. Chanted now by 4 or 5 million people when they want to. And I put it out on a recent CD, so if you're not chanting it, now you can. The Shakti Choir is. They remember it because they just recorded it several months ago in the studio. So some highlights for explaining these charts as we go along. We only have 5 minutes, so I'm going to pick up these charts and this new chart about spiritual progress towards freedom next week. So be on hand for that, so we can take up the Jnana Bhumikas and see how a soul begins to really soar, and also find out how all of this works, how Shiva, with his great arrow that he's given to Ram for his great bow, you see, he says here, and we'll end with this, "With the intellect sharpened by thoughts on reality alone, release the arrow of mind and penetrate the mark, the imperishable Brahman. Dhanur grahitva upanishadam mahastram. Sharam hupisanashita sanjayita. Ayamya tad bhavakatena chetasya. Laksham tarevaksharam somya vinti. Om shanti shanti shantihi. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om." Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Deva Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandaititam Bhagna Sadrisham Tattvamasya Vilaksham Ekam Nicham Vimalamachalam Sarvadi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Triguna Rahitam Sadgurum